I'd like to open tonight on a quote by Zora Neale Hurston. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. It's not the point of my talk, but it is the undercurrent of my talk. If you are silent about your pain, they will kill you and say you enjoyed it. As I talk today, please just keep that in the back of your mind. There's a not-so-secret event that happens yearly for most English teachers, across the United States at least. Usually it might come out in a student turning in a poem, a student turning in a short story or an essay, coming for a little after-school chat with a knock, knock, knock at the door. Sometimes it's just a soft signal of knowing. This not-so-secret secret that I'm talking about, of course, is when queer kids come out to their English teachers, especially if they come from families like mine. For some students, I've been the first adult that they've ever confided that information in. For a smaller handful of students, I have been the first adult that they've told, the first human that they've told in general. There's also a secret that I've kept for myself for the better part of 3 decades. Through the muck and mire of my childhood, I knew, or my therapist would prefer me to say, I felt, and so I'll say through the muck and mire of my childhood, I felt the truth of myself. But if you grew up in a church like mine, around men who spoke like the men at my church spoke, if you grew up with parents who talked about relationships and sexuality like mine did, you too might have chosen silence, especially if you're from Minnesota. We love silence in Minnesota. But here's the thing. You can only watch The Mummy with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz so many times before they start showing up in your dreams, both wearing leather, and you wake up with a lot of questions. There's only so many pictures of Carmen Electra and Morris Chestnut that you can print off your family computer and hide in your closet, pun intended, until you have to accept the truth. You're a bisexual baddie. The day eventually came. Well, actually, I'm going to take a moment to reclaim some time for 15-year-old me with Morris Chestnut, if you don't mind. Just kind of want to be that football, huh? All right, that's probably good. That's probably good. A day eventually came when the fear of being found out mounted and became too much. So I burned my Morris Chestnut pictures. I did not burn the Carmen Electra pictures because subconsciously I knew in my family finding the Carmen Electra pictures was acceptable. I would have still been punished, but it was acceptable. Finding the Morris Chestnut pictures, I did not want to find out as a child what that meant for my parents. So today I am here to talk to a younger version of me. Today I'm here to talk to students in this room who might feel similarly how I felt, and I'm here to talk to school leadership around the United States. I'm here to talk to them about a message that I've brought up in every single school that I've worked in, and that message is, our queer kids deserve so much more from us. I am both furious and unsurprised to say that every school I brought this up in has ended in performative allyship via symbols and flags, and also affirmations behind closed doors, but never concrete action. Not all of us need this next part, but I think it's important that we ground ourselves in the socio-political reality of our current times and our history. This is from the state government website on the left. You will see, in a sense, the full acronym with the plus sign for the LGBTQ plus community. On the right, you will see Trump has removed certain amounts of letters. This is clear erasure for our trans community. This is clear erasure for gender nonconforming folks and our intersex friends. Just last week in Them magazine, a couple headlines. 5 states are urging the SCOTUS to end marriage equality. And just south of my home state of Minnesota, Iowa may become the first state to revoke existing trans discrimination protections, which means that their lives will become more violent when it comes to accessing healthcare, getting education, or seeking justice. I'd like to take a brief moment to take it one step closer to us and talk about our kids. Last year, the APA reported that 1 in 5 students have seriously considered suicide, and that number increases when you look at Black youth. The Trevor Project last year, in their annual audit, showcased stats that say 41% of LGBTQ young people have seriously considered attempting suicide. Those are stats from 2023, and that number is higher for trans and gender nonconforming youth. We can take it one step closer and we can bring it to Comp Sci High here. Last week, while I was discussing this idea and volleying it back and forth with some of my colleagues, but I'll be honest, I was still 1 foot in the bucket of silence. I was like, maybe not this time. Maybe I'll do it in 5 years. And both of my colleagues said, no, Chris, you have to. And my defiant side came out a little bit, and I was like, no, I don't. But I said, tell me why. And they said, on Monday, there were some of my advisees, they were talking about doing this topic. They were going to do it in their way with their truths, but they wanted to do it. And by the end of Monday, they had decided against it. And I don't need to explain to you why they decided against it. There's multiple answers that we know, but to state the obvious, they felt that if they brought it to our table, it wouldn't be accepted. And a small part of them believed that if they brought it to the table, no adult would have their back. I'd like to take a moment to flip the script and talk about some queer victories that I've experienced throughout my life here. In 2011, Don't Ask, Don't Tell gets repealed out of the US military. In 2015, we can snap for that, please. In 2015, same-sex marriage is legalized. In 2024, 1,000 queer folks ran for political office at the federal, state, and local levels here in the United States. Since 2012, PrEP has slowed the spread of HIV amongst our communities. I'd very much like to add a lot more queer victories, but at least one more personal queer victory, and I would like to do that in the next few years, and that is, I would like to work at a school that openly celebrates the queerness of its students. I said celebrates. I didn't say tolerates. I didn't say affirms. Let's talk about how we can get there in 3 simple steps. My call to action will be for students, for staff members inside of schools, and for school leadership around the United States in varying states. I know that everyone has different contexts with what's going on today. Students, my first message to you is 3 words: cause a ruckus. That looks different for everybody, but before you get started, if you haven't yet, make sure you do your research. Read the words of your activist ancestors. We're talking about Sylvia Rivera, we're talking about James Baldwin, we're talking about Marsha P. Johnson. There's many to choose from. But reading these people will allow you to know how to move and survive when the chips are down, and it'll teach you how to build community. Some options for you at schools, because I'll be honest, sometimes I don't know if y'all realize how much collective power you have here. You outnumber us. You could get together with your friends, create a zine, print it up, spread it around school, put it in your principal's office, put it on the front desk, ask teachers to hold it in their rooms. And this zine could contain queer history, could contain sexual health information. Whatever you feel is missing out of your curriculum, you have the keys to bring it to your fellow classmates. You could have a walkout. Make sure that your mission and your values are clearly stated in your walkout, but you could definitely put together a walkout, and that has happened across the United States a lot. One last thing for you, you could stage a sit-in and make sure that your demands are being heard from your school leadership. The last thing I want to note for you is, it's something that I wish I learned much earlier in life. Be an inconvenience. There's the phrase, back home we say, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, but be an inconvenience, because that's when action will start happening. So a lot of people, and in my experience, a lot of school leadership, they are not going to move on this due to discomfort. So the squeakier your wheel, the better. Take a moment to move on to staff members. Yes, of course, we should have the flag in our room, right? We can stand in solidarity with our students. But we have the power to go beyond that. Frankly, our curriculum needs to update in various ways. So English teachers, we know that we can teach novels and texts that have queer characters in them. We need to be careful though, because we want to make sure that those stories aren't steeped fully in queer pain, but also highlight queer joy. Math teachers, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know too much. I'm gonna lean on you for that one, okay? Social studies teachers, you know our history, Stonewall, the AIDS epidemic. It is one of survival and joy and love, and our students deserve to hear those stories and see the fullness of the figures that embody their history. Science, I think you're very uniquely positioned because nature is so very queer. Shout out to clownfish and snails and many other animals that are just very queer. And if it's out there in nature, what does that say about us? These are questions that students in high school are very ready to wrestle with, as long as we guide them with proper terminology, etc. Last but not least, school leadership. I apologize if I sound dejected in this next part, but again, this is where queer equity has always gone to die when I speak at previous schools. My message is the same for you. You need to cause a ruckus. Metaphorically, you might need to throw a brick, but your brick looks different than the students, because I understand that the spaces that you have to navigate that they include families, right? And some families in your community might be much like my family. That doesn't mean that the conversation can't happen, right? So you will be wearing many hats as you go on this journey. And if you don't feel like you're ready to take those steps, the very first step is research. Come to my library, I can help you out. Personally, educate yourself. Take the next step, build a task force at your school, surround yourself with community, because nobody, especially your teachers and your students, we do not expect you to do it alone, but we do expect you to move, because every time you freeze and don't move, you welcome silence and hiding in our community. I'd like to visit some words from Alex Myers. For those of us that aren't familiar with Alex Myers, he wrote the book Supporting Transgender Students. And in it, every chapter has a set of action steps that you can take. It is for teachers and administrators and school leaders to read so that they understand how to roll out a system that is gender affirming and queer inclusive. In one of the chapters it states, as is often the case in educational institutions, it is the adults' discomfort around the topic rather than the students' needs that drive the restrictions in the curriculum. Again, my phrase from earlier, our queer students deserve so much more from us than our discomfort. This is our DEI initiative from the CompSci High website. Many schools, many organizations have this as well, right? I dream, again, of working at a school that celebrates the queerness of its students. The DEI initiatives is where that can begin. No student should have to burn up their Morris Chestnut collection, you know? Trans students shouldn't be afraid to navigate the spaces, especially at their schools. All queer students deserve to be celebrated to the fullest extent of their identity in our educational institutions. Thank you for your time.